we'll be going over IRS Notice LT11B, Notice of Intent to Levy in Your Right to a Hearing. We're going to go over this notice, but I wanted to inform you that we produced a video a while back on IRS 11 or IRS Notice LT11, and I really couldn't find much of a difference between that notice and this one. This one is the notice of intent to levy, just like the other one. When I looked on the IRS website at this hyperlink at the bottom of the notice, it came back as a page not found or a 404 error. There were a couple of other indications that really led me to believe that these might be very similar, and I couldn't find anything from the IRS or any other authority to point out the difference. So we'll go through this notice and we'll kind of talk about what your options may be under this notice of intent to levy. So the first thing that I want to do is point you up here to the upper right hand corner where you have the notice number, the notice date. In this case, it's a business, so it'd be an employer ID number and then a case reference number. And, we'll go ahead and test this hyperlink right here. This is the first IRS notice where I've seen the hyperlink in the upper right-hand corner on page 1. But as you can see, page not found. I assume that some of the information on this page, LT11, might serve the same purpose. And I haven't been able to find anything that tells us the difference between an LT11 and an LT11B notice. So let's go back to the notice and just kind of point out some things. So always pay attention to the notice date. Usually, and especially when you get to this point in the collections process, there's probably a due date of something, in this case payments, that are tied to that due date, that notice date. So basically, in an actual notice, you would see a lot of dates here that would be, basically tied to the notice date, and then a due date, which is just in brackets here, would probably either have a date that was calculated like 30 days, or 45 days from the notice date. But in this case, we just see that it's generic information, notice date here, notice date there, taxpayer name. So we can't really see a lot of detail here. Just know that the notice date is important when you're reviewing your correspondence, because anything that the IRS expects you to do at this stage of the collections process, there's a tie to the notice date. For example, if you want to appeal, and you can do this by requesting a collection due process hearing, then that would be within 30 days of the due date. So you can actually file IRS form 12153, which is the request for a collection due process or equivalent hearing, and then you would file that with the IRS. That allows you to do certain things through the appeals process, and then if you lose in the appeals decision through the IRS Independent Office of Appeals, you can still appeal that further through the judicial process, beginning with tax court, and that goes all the way up to the Supreme Court if necessary. Not all tax cases make it to the Supreme Court, but you can appeal until your appeals process runs out. So the second thing that I would say is that you should pay attention to the name and address. If you've recently changed addresses, then you should update your IRS record by filing IRS Form 8822 or IRS Form 8822-B. That's the official change of address notice for either individuals or the -B version for business owners. So that way, as you continue to correspond with the IRS, your correspondence can catch up to you, and you don't run out of time to take the appropriate action. So let's take a closer look at the notice itself. So in this case, it's the amount that's immediately due is $4,823.12. There would be a due date stated here. So what you need to do is gather this information, your employer ID number, form numbers, routing number, account number, and then it gives you step-by-step directions on how you would make these payments online. So if you don't make your payments online, then the IRS may, meaning that they will, seize your property if you fail to comply. So that can include garnishing wages or other income, bank accounts, business assets, personal assets, Social Security benefits, Alaska Permanent Fund dividends if you're eligible, or state tax refunds. So generally, the federal government will kind of go for the easiest to liquidate assets. So if you have money in your bank account, you can expect that to be taken before they try to evict you from your home, for example, or take your car. So the IRS, just like anyone else, does not want to be in the business of car and home ownership. They'll just take your money, or they'll garnish wages, or they'll do what they can up until the point where they have to go after personal property. They may also file a notice of federal tax lien. They may already have done that, but they can do that if they need to. And then federal law actually requires the federal government to revoke a passport for people that have debt exceeding, in this case, $52,000. So that means if you don't have a passport, you won't get one. If you have one, it may be revoked or at least suspended while you have tax debt. And they won't renew it. They won't issue you a new one. So, and that's specifically to prevent tax debtors from fleeing the country. So you do have some other options. You can pay by credit card. There are fees associated with that. You can pay by check or money order, and there are specific instructions on how to do that. Or you can try and reach an installment payment plan. So you can either go to the IRS website, or you can file IRS Form 9465, which is the installment agreement request. So there are other resources on the IRS website with regards to how to set up a payment plan over time. The IRS does understand that not everyone may be able to pay 100% of their tax payment, up front. So, in certain circumstances, you can create an installment agreement. The IRS will be looking for certain minimum amounts to pay. So you couldn't pay $1 a year for the next 4,823 years. You would have to at least submit something that the IRS would consider to be reasonable. So down here is the form that you would request the collection due process hearing with. We'll put links in the show notes to an article and video that we've created about IRS Form 12153, as well as some of the other forms mentioned here. So here's a billing summary that consists of taxes, the interest, failure to pay penalty, and then there's a total of everything. So in this case, this was on IRS Form 941. Coincidentally, I just finished some articles on IRS Form 941, so we'll put links in the show notes to that. If you want to pull down a tax transcript, you can file IRS Form 4506-T, or if you have an online IRS account, you can simply log into your account and pull down copies of your transcript from there. So additional penalties and interest accrue if the payments received more than 21 calendar days from the notice date. Again, pay attention to this notice date. But if you owe more than $100,000, that's 10 business days. So, and then there would be information up here, but we just looked at the website and that one's broken. So you can call the IRS if you have this notice just to see what they recommend. If you mail your payment, at the bottom of this last page, there is a payment voucher. You should seriously consider paying online. But if you do pay by check or money order, then you would make that out to the United States Treasury. Write your employer ID number on your payment and then any correspondence, and then you would mail this with your check or money order to this address right here. So, so I think that's all we have for this notice. Again, we'll put links in the show notes to articles and videos we've created about some of the tax forms that were mentioned here. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or comments, or if there's another topic that you'd like to see covered in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.